Alrighty. So here we are. We're going to do some more Dark Souls. I think today I might try to get through the Sunken City, since we were able to get through the Burnt Ivory King yesterday. Although if I wanted to be a psycho, I would go through the area with the two jungle cats. But I don't know if I'm that much of a psycho. So I did pretty good killing the Burnt Ivory King yesterday. That guy is a bit of a challenge. I'd say what's interesting about this particular Dark Souls is just how beautiful it is. I mean, every Souls game is beautiful. I would make the argument that this Souls game is more beautiful than most, considering the time it was made. Sorry, I gotta find the key to this place because I'm a dumbass. Okay. Well, gotta go to a door.
Wait, the name's Gilligan. All right, I have him. You want to go down? Fine. You need it, but you... Well, really? I get such a warm feeling. Hey, the only things I sell are miniatures. Well, that's fine. You just don't get it. Fine. Hey, the only things I... Cheers for that.
Say it's also my pussy ring. You know, since it's a cat ring. Not being dirty or anything. You know, I taught a putty tat. It had a ring in it. Like, god damn. Like, okay, I just want you to consider, Majula here, this is top tier world. Even though if you wanted to get all precise about things, like, you could definitely pick apart the world design if you wanted to, but that wouldn't really be relevant. It's just a beautiful area. You know, it's well made. These animations. this area is. It's poison hell. This place has so much poison and so many traps. I have some memories of this place. One time, I listened to the entire Dark Side of the Moon album while running through this. It was pretty nuts. This area, it gets hairy. see in the fucking game. Always have an abundance, because you won't have to use it. So, I don't know. I was thinking about maybe discussing the notion of PTSD, right? I'm a veteran who has PTSD, and personally I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about it. As I see it, every veteran is different. Every person who suffers PTSD is different. There's not a one-size-fits-all thing. But here's how I see it. For me, the way I would describe my version of PTSD is that I acquired it during a war. This isn't a sob story. This isn't a feel bad for me session or anything. It's merely what it is. Acknowledgement of reality. But for me, it's more than just violence. I served at the height of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Bisexual atheists. Now, some people could say that that I'm overplaying this or playing it up or whatever. My response to that would be that I served during a time when it was common, well, not when it was common, when the military had an active policy against, you know, people who have a certain sexual preference or who have like a certain way of being. Is the way I would explain it. Like, the way I would explain sexuality, ironically, is a lot of Christians say that a person chooses their sexuality. I would argue you don't. And some people could say that that sounds like some sort of a cop-out to avoid accountability, but I actually think that it's key in understanding a great many things about society, human sexuality, and how we as people act. You know? And when I'm saying people don't choose who they're attracted to, I think that encompasses both when we look at, like, for instance, people who are gay, or like bisexual, or straight or whatever. But I think that it also is going to hold the other things as well. Like, what I'm getting at, like, let's be real. So what I'm getting at here is that people don't choose who they're attracted to. It's not like a person, like any man, I think, honest with themselves, you know, like, they see an attractive lady and they get sprung with that song, you know, about liking big butts. Point being, that's just the way it is, right? I suppose the bigger point that I make is that there's a difference between, say, a person having a certain attraction and then another person who acts on an attraction. There's like some attractions, for instance, they're like totally acceptable. Like, for instance, you meet an attractive lady and you decide that you're going to make her your wife and have kids with her, the whole 9 yards. You know, that would be considered like acceptable. And like, ironically, oh, son of a bitch. Fucking camera lock killed me again. God damn it. I hate camera lock sometimes. What I'm getting at is, like, as far as sexuality goes, people are attracted to who they're attracted to, right? And I suppose what I'm getting at, if I were to be really honest, is since people are attracted to who they're attracted to and they don't control it, that's a better way. They don't control who they're attracted to. That's a better way of looking at attraction than, say, like, a view of, say, certain religions who say that you choose who you're attracted to. It's like an automatic biological response. You see someone you're attracted to, that's just how it is, right? Now, this also has application, I think, when we start talking about attracted to people who it's not illegal to be attracted to them. keep seeing these things come up where like a person gets caught doing like something horrible to a kid or something. And I think that when we start looking at those people, the best way to conceptualize those people is that they don't choose their attraction, but they do choose their actions. I suppose that's maybe the best way to start looking at this deal on people. Because if we realize that they're just acting on biological drive, it doesn't excuse what they're doing, it doesn't excuse their actions, but it at least allows society to conceptualize how these people act and to decide how it is that they're going to deal with people like that in a way that protects everybody. As far as I'm concerned, the way I look at it is all of these partners have been over the age of 18, and actually really if we look over the age of 21, to be more specific. And so I really have no problems with like, you know, with what other people have problems with. You know, but as far as like me being bisexual, people could like make it. But here's how I look at it. The way I look at it is as long as the people involved are consenting adults, the keyword is adults, you know, the state shouldn't really give a shit what they do. Neither should the U.S. Army. And like, there are homophobic people who would be like, oh my god, you know, gays in the military. Next thing you know, we'll have a lesbian president or something. You know, and like they'll go on. Like, next thing you know, we'll have a transgender president or something like that, as if it would be the end of the fucking world. But like, here's how I'm looking at it, right? The way I'm looking at it, as far as gays in the military, is pretty simple. A transgender person with a fucking gun can still shoot people and make them not alive. Surprise, right? And there are some people who might try to like really narrow down Trump designation of trans people as terrorists and be like, oh, our point. But like, that's to ignore the point. The way I look at it is pretty simple. Oh, fucking goddamn it. Goddamn rock got in the way and prevented me from navigating like I wanted to. That's fucking dumb. See, this area is dumb because of this. Falling is one of the worst fucking things in this area. What I'm getting at is this. A trans person with a gun or a gay person with a gun is still capable of shooting someone. What should matter is whether a person can meet the standards or not. You know, they want to make the standards extra high and be like, oh, we're only accepting manly men here. Like, fine, let them. Like, you know, at that point, just be a fat body who can't meet their standards. They can fuck themselves if they want you to do it. Yeah. People could say that, like, being ex-military, I should be nicer to the military because they pay for my college and all. But to that I'd say, fuck that. When I was in, they treated me like shit. You know? And then afterwards, to be able to fuck them. People could say that that's a mean thing to say, and I should be nice to the military, and I should thank them for everything. My response would be, they should have treated me better and they shouldn't have fucked up my GI. They can suck it. But they can't fuck me. Bigger picture, my view of the military and PTSD and trauma as a 50 cal gunner is that for everybody it's different. You know, but like, it's not just that people said mean things and hurt my feelings. You know, like, I was in a war, you know, people tried to kill me a lot. 60 IEDs and 2 firefights. And people could say that other people have had it worse. I'd 100% be like, you know what, you're fucking right. I'd be like, yeah, they wouldn't hate a pussy like you. Goes on and on about how much the army sucks. I could say that, you know, there are people who've lost legs, and I'd be like, yeah, there are people who have lost legs. It sucks that that happened. 100%. I wish it didn't happen, you know? And I respect people who have lost limbs, who have been critically injured, who have taken fire, and so on. I respect them for their sacrifice, and I'm sorry for their loss. I don't know how to explain it. That is the way that I would look at it. But for me, I'd prefer we be in a situation where we're not constantly sending people to go to war and die. I'd also prefer that we create an infrastructure environment where we are paying soldiers the entirety of their GI Bill, and then we're compensating them financially if they get screwed by the government through its own negligence. That's where I'm coming from. People wanted to say I'm not patriotic. This is what I would say. I would say that I was patriotic enough to fight in a fucking war for this country. So they shouldn't try to pull that shit. You know? Like, I did my part. I did my time. You know? And I'd say that a real patriot criticizes their government when it's fucking up and doing wrong. Because otherwise, if you don't criticize your government, if you don't call your government out for fucking up and doing wrong, then there's no incentive for it to stop. They'll just keep fucking up and doing wrong, you know? We don't want a government that fucks up and does wrong all the time. At least I don't. Some people might, but I don't. I don't want to live in a government where, like, we have a shit economy and where we're constantly... Shit. I want a government with smart people running things. Smart people that are looking out for the best of humanity. Not low IQ dipshits who think that they're the master race, even though they're just kind of like racist and inferior people. Some people could say that I'm a Nazi when I use the insult inferior people. Here's how I'm looking at this. For me, I am not a big fan of Nazis. People might think that I sound like them. Well, I mean, maybe that's because for about most of my life, I've been raised adjacent to white supremacist culture, and ultimately I've internalized it to a degree. Even when I start removing biases against, you know, like race. And people could say that that makes me a bad guy and that I'm practically Hitler. My response to that is that I didn't choose my culture. But I would also say that I'm not a fan. Truth is, I dislike them. I dealt with one earlier today who mistook me from a black individual. He said all manner of racist and terrible things to me. I told him he was a degenerate white. And that while he might think he wants a white supremacist government, his opinion would change if he actually lived under one. When I say this fucking guy was a racist, I mean he was a straight up racist. And like, it was hilarious too, because he really thought I was black, so he really laid the black racism in on me hard. I'm like, I'm whiter than snow, you know? Whiter than David Bowie's China dust. my view, is actually hilariously simple. What I want to see is a true meritocracy. And what I mean by this is I want a society where people are not judged by their skin color, or by race, as it is called, a pseudoscientific construct that was made a long time ago. I want a world where people are judged by their merit. Not only were they judged by their merit. Oh, this place can get hairy if I remember right. Or they also have the opportunity to get high quality education, regardless of who their parents are, what country they came from. That's what I want. And a person could say how does this fit in with PTSD? Because I've gotten off topic, and I acknowledge I've gotten off topic. The way I look at it is my particular version of PTSD is not only due to hostile encounters, in war, it's also due to hostile interactions with other human beings. Which is why I prefer solitude. It's why I prefer to not be around people. Because people suck. They're irrational, and they fucking suck. Okay, we were to get to why I like Dark Souls 2 more than Dark Souls... Well, more than Elden Ring. I'll tell you why. It's because Dark Souls 2 is more dungeon based. Such a mean trap. but it also has an item. See, that room is so well done because even though I know it's coming, it gives me the goddamn willies every time I go through it. Those enemies are great because as far as enemies are concerned, they make the player feel disgust. As I see it, it's not easy to make a player feel straight up disgust when they look at a character model. Yet, I would point out that this is precisely what they've done with these creepy crawly enemies. This area is the hobo balls. Shit. You gotta where the freaking gravestones are where they chase you. And they suck. They're mean. Well, damn. I guess I'm right back where I started, huh? That sucks. So, like, when you get to this area, it's a rough area to be. It's about as rough as it gets. So, let's just check something out. If I look at my equipment load right now, it's at 51%. What happens if I... and let's plus 35. Now it's at 85. Now it's at 75. Okay, I see. Now it's at 85. So if I go with a low build, low equipment. I can get this going to 85. Come on, and be a weirdo. I can be the butterfly. I'm a dead butterfly. Fuck life. I'll do that next station, please. Dude. Even if you roughly know what you're doing, this area's falls are absolutely the worst. This area sucks. God damn. So I go through one area, another angle. Damn it. Look at this shit. Jesus shitting fucking Christ. I think the moral of the story here is that these wings don't provide. because I forgot to attune spells. Yeah, this is my bigger point with, like, don't ask, don't tell, and gay people in the military. There are a few people in my unit who are also LGBTQ people, you know? And, they weren't, like, really obvious about it. I wasn't really obvious about it either, but people would still, like, harass me because they suspected I was at least a little gay. And, yeah, the way that I would explain it is a lot of the people who were at least a little bit gay were pretty much indistinguishable from the people who were straight as a fucking arrow. But it didn't stop the army from having this weird obsession with the gays, you know? And it's absolutely the height of insanity at this point. Especially in our own society as it stands. Because here's the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it like this. We live in the era where pornography is more accessible than it's always been. And where most people are watching people fuck each other on the internet. And what'll happen is these people will go off about how degenerate the gays are, whilst they are watching gay porn on the internet. Maybe even worse. You know? They'll go off about how evil the gays are. Yet, what you find out is that they are a closet homosexual themselves. That's kind of the bigger joke, right? When you're in the army, if you get caught being an LGBTQ person, they have actual, like, UCMJ. They can screw you real good, you know? I suppose this is kind of my point. My point is, when you look at the military enshrines its bigotry into policy, right? And that's kind of my big critique of it. Like, why can't they just, at the end of the day, be like, all we give a shit about is if you can meet standards. They could go on about how, with gays in the military, you don't want to have an army unit where everybody's just fucking each other up the ass all the time. But I don't think that's really like what it turns into, you know? I gotta take boots off. My feet are getting gross. Point is, you know, there were more than a few gay people. It's not like we were like having gay orgies or anything, but I had some people come to my defense when I was accused of being an LGBTQ person. Not going to give you the entire story. Well, maybe I will. Maybe I will. One second. Basically, before the war, some dude bought me drinks at a bar and asked my ID. I'm not going to go into details. And one of the people was talking about how that makes me like super gay, and the other dude who's like apparently more gay than I am, he basically goes, "Did you make eye contact?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "See, you didn't make eye contact." He's like, "Did you kiss him?" I was like, "No, I didn't kiss him. I didn't make eye contact." He's like, "Did the balls touch?" He's like, "Nope." He goes, "Well, he's not gay because the balls didn't touch and they didn't make eye contact." And the guy was like, "Dude, that's totally gay." He goes like, "No." He goes like, I know what gay stuff is like." He goes like, "And that's not gay." You know, he's like, it's like finding a spare change under the couch, you know. And I suppose like maybe if I were to talk about gay issues a little more ironically, here's how I look at it, right? So like, if a woman sucks a dick, nobody gives a fuck, you know? They're just kind of like, yeah, that's a woman sucking a dick, you know? Yet if a man sucks a dick, oh my god, that's not right. It's weird, right? It's weird. We got like these different standards. I don't know why men sucking dicks is a big deal, you know, because they're the best at it, you know? Like, you say that's a horrible joke, you'd be like, oh my god, you know, it's totally inappropriate. I'd say it's a good point. Get some women, they think that what makes a good blowjob is extra teeth. Extra teeth do not make a good blowjob. It's like, women, stop trying to bite my dick off. No. Sometimes you gotta joke, right? You gotta joke about things you're not supposed to joke about. That's how it goes. That's a fucking cool animation, right? This area is shit nasty. This area is so shit nasty, I forgot how shit nasty it was. As far as PTSD goes, ironically, it's fucked up, but it's why I'm drawn to these sorts of games. When I was in the military, I was a gunner, 50 cal gunner. And I suppose where I go with that is my identity is kind of based around retribution. Basically an eye for an eye kind of deal. Although for me, the exchange rate is about 1 eye for 2. Although it could also be 1 for 1. Generous. One moment, I gotta blow my nose. My nose is being mean. I mean, that stated, even with my 1 eye for 2 approach, I think that what's going on in Gaza is a tad bit excessive. Given what's going on there. The actions in Gaza make my 1 eye for 2 approach look fucking generous. I'm also generally against harming civilians as well, though. People can try to say that it's justified all day long. My question would be, what military advantage, like what military objective do you hope to accomplish? Then secondarily, the question is it proportional to the losses you are about to inflict upon an enemy? Because as I see it, the losses should be proportional. And actions should be taken to prevent innocent deaths. I've heard people say that there are no innocents in Gaza, but that's a very dangerous road to go down. Because if you can say that there's nobody in a population that's innocent because of the actions of the worst members of their society, then other people can do the same to you. Asshole broke Flynn's ring. Alrighty. That sucks. Here's how we're gonna do it. This stuff has almost no poison and it doesn't really help me. That's actually pretty cool looking, but unfortunately, this works. was saying earlier, though. When I was talking about how people don't control who they're attracted to. There's a bigger point to this, though. The bigger point is that what does matter is whether a person's actions are quantitative appropriate to whether a person acts on it. These are the most important things, I would say. And one thing I'll point out, if we want to get to the bigger picture of things, the bigger picture of things is we got the Republican Party, who claims to be the party of family values, yet despite these claims, they keep getting caught up in scandals, you know? And so, like, for me, as I see it, if two guys are gonna butt-buck each other, as long as there, like, aren't any kids involved, I don't think anybody should give a fuck about what consenting adults do in their own bedroom. As long as they leave the kids out of their bedroom. That's my position. And you know, this could eventually start getting into the topic of trans rights and so on, what the right likes to call transgenderism. For me, getting out of the military, I found that a society that respects gay rights and that treats LGBTQ people as equals to heterosexual people was something I wasn't used to. I had a hard time adapting to that. Because in the environment that I was in originally, such a thought was inconceivable to me. And a person could ask, what are my thoughts on transgender rights? Answer? It's actually really easy. Transgender people are people. And so, as long as they leave the kids out of their bedroom, you respect their rights. It's pretty fucking easy. Because once you realize that it's like as easy as if they're a person, you give them equal rights, all of these conversations about constitutional rights and who gets rights and who doesn't get rights, it all becomes a lot easier. Now there are religious folk who might argue that LGBTQ people having equal rights is a violation of their sincerely held religious beliefs. And the way that I would respond to that is that they have a right to believe as they choose. What they don't have a right to do is to impose their beliefs on everybody else and expect everybody else to believe as they do. ask ourselves, what's the purpose of MAGA? The purpose of MAGA, as I'm conceptualizing it, is they're trying to do a cultural reset. And it's by performing a cultural reset, they can clear the stage for a Christian nationalist resurgence. The thing is, Christian nationalist resurgences are always short-lived affairs. Because at the end of the day, the harder Christianity pushes, the harder religion pushes, the harder the backlash will be when Christian nationalists are no longer in power. I personally saw it happen in the 2000s. I'm pretty sure we're going to see it happen again. But in the meantime, what I fully expect to see is the Christian nationalists try to ruin as many people as possible beforehand. Because it's kind of what they ruin people. And they might argue that they don't ruin people, they're just trying to save them. They're not trying to save anybody. Their end goal is the subjugation of all. Even if they pretend it's not. The reason the US government loves Christianity so much is because Christians are easy. There are a few groups that are easier to whip up into a bloodthirsty than the Christians. Gotta tell them it's the end of days and Jesus is gonna come back any day now. Eat it up. vicious because no matter what you do with her, she's gonna fucking hurt you. Say the good move I did here was equipping all of the magic resist rings. That is a lot.
I'll be around.
Bearer of plenty. Until
I'll be around.
Bunch of swords. combination of warmth plus the ring. Well, so this is what I'm kind of getting at. In my case, even though I might have days that are good, the truth is, underpinning my entire view of the world is a profound sense of cynicism and apathy. It comes down to how people carry themselves. My view is statistically, most people kind of suck. And I see this view as mostly accurate. Well, I figured I'd try since yeah, it's profound cynicism. I would say that this has kind of been a thing since before the military even. The military made it even worse. I suppose the bigger joke is that I find it hard to pretend to like people. I don't. And some could say this makes me some sort of bigot. boss is about as bullshit as it gets. The biggest difference with this place is having to wait on elevators to get to the house. think I might have to take a break for a second, because this has been a bit rough. But I'll probably come back to this. It's just, I'm out of effigies, and this boss fight is awful. Worse than I remember, so I'll probably do it.